The only thing worse than deciding to go take a tinkle during one of your dreams would be to avoid these 7 players that I refuse to leave a draft without in 2025. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in depth through each of these 7 players, and by the end of today's video, you will realize exactly why you need to draft them in all of your 2025 fantasy football drafts. But before we can get into things, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into 7 players I refuse to leave a draft without in 2025. We begin with Malik Nabers, wide receiver of the New York Football Giants. Current consensus ADP from ESPN, NFL, RT Sports, and CBS has him as the wide receiver number 5 at pick number 8. Now, last year, entering into fantasy football drafts, I was all over Malik Nabers. I talked about how I loved his tape coming out of LSU. I loved his ability to potentially finish as a top 18-ish wide receiver in fantasy football. I talked about how maybe even on an outside chance he may finish as a top 12 wide receiver, despite the fact that the quarterback play there out of Daniel Jones wouldn't be the best. I really just thought Malik Nabers was that good. He had the draft capital to be a wide receiver that breaks out in his rookie year, and I was completely right. He was the wide receiver 6 on the season in PPR and the wide receiver 7 in PPR points per game. And we enter into yet another season where there is some confusion at the quarterback position. Last year, we knew it would be Daniel Jones, but I don't think anyone was riding high and mighty for Daniel Jones. I don't think anyone was super excited about Daniel Jones. I think we have a similar scenario this season with Russell Wilson. Is Russell Wilson as bad as Daniel Jones? Of course not, right? Daniel Jones is bottom of the barrel in terms of quarterback play. Daniel Jones plays quarterback like a blind man. He's out there reading defenses like Stevie Wonder, reading a defense like how Floyd Mayweather would try to read Cat in the Hat, right? It just ain't going to happen. Russell Wilson is better than that, but this isn't the same Russell Wilson of yesteryears. This is not an elite quarterback by any means, but hey, it is definitely better than the play we got last season. And if they do eventually pivot to Jackson Dart, I also do believe that Jackson Dart is better than Daniel Jones. So Malik Nabers, despite the fact that the quarterback position is definitely relatively iffy compared to a lot of teams in the National Football League, Malik Nabers was able to put up elite numbers last season, despite the fact that they had a carousel of quarterbacks last season. He had 170 targets, 11.3 per game in 15 games as the wide receiver 2. He had 109 receptions, 7.3 per game, number 3 at wide receiver, 1,204 receiving yards, 80.3 per game, number 7, and 7 total touchdowns, 20th at the wide receiver position, doing so with the 10th highest yards per team pass attempt, and he was number 1 in dominator rating. We just saw Malik Nabers put belt to ass in a bunch of games last season. He had 5 games where he finished inside of the top 10 in terms of that week at the wide receiver position, and he had 3 games in which he scored over 28 PPR points. In week 2 up against the Commanders, he was the wide receiver 3 with 28.7 PPR points. In week number 3 up against the Cleveland Browns, he was the wide receiver number 4 with 28.2 PPR points, and week number 17 up against the Indianapolis Colts, he absolutely devoured that defense, 36.1 PPR points as the wide receiver number 2, again, with bad quarterback play. I understand that no one is in love with Russell Wilson. I get that no one really is in love with Jackson Dart for his rookie season because of the setup for the Giants, but Malik Nabers is just going to get force-fed the ball. The Bull is going to potentially lose his job if the Giants end up being a bit of a disaster this season. He's going to be getting kicked to the curb. So I do believe they're going to heavily scheme the ball into Malik Nabers' hands. He is by far and away the best player on this offense. Maybe you think that Dexter Lawrence is technically a better overall player than Malik Nabers, so maybe you don't want to say on both offense and defense, but in my opinion, Malik Nabers is the best player on the Giants. They are going to get him involved early and often in games, and this is a guy that you could be seeing averaging 12 plus targets a game. I really do think the Giants are going to force feed this man the rock, and even with Russell Wilson under center, I believe Malik Nabers has the upside to be the wide wide receiver number 1 in fantasy football. At number 2, we got Tyreek Hill, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, consensus ADP wide receiver 12 at pick number 29. Now, Tyreek Hill's ADP has been rising as of recently, right? A lot of people had him kind of buried inside of the end of the 3rd round. Now he's slowly moving up, but frankly, I think Tyreek Hill burned far too many fantasy football players last season for him to move up into the 2nd round of fantasy drafts, and honestly, I think he should be going inside of the 2nd round because of the immense amount of upside that he possesses. I fully understand that Tyreek Hill absolutely blew your back out, metaphorically, of course, last season. If you had drafted Tyreek Hill with the 1st overall pick, or at minimum a top 3, top 5 overall pick, you felt disgusted with your decision making. You couldn't sleep at night because you made the wrong decision. He was the wide receiver 18 in PPR and the wide receiver 32 in PPR points per game. But when you look at this guy's career as a whole, his rookie year and 2024 last season were by far and away his worst years in the NFL. Sandwiched in between the wide receiver 29 point per game season in 2024 and the wide receiver 32 in 2016 are all top 12 finishes. He has been in Miami since 2022, where he's been the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, and wide receiver 29. So what is more likely to happen? That Tyreek Hill is just washed, despite the fact that when you watch the tape, you can actually see him being able to get open and the quarterback play just wasn't the best? Or is the guy just completely fallen off the edge of the earth, like what Christopher Columbus believed would happen if you sailed too far into the ocean? I think more than likely Tyreek Hill is perfectly fine. Sure, maybe he has lost a bit of a step. Maybe he's not as fast, but he is still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Speed kills in the NFL, and Tua Tagovailoa has been able to consistently hit him over the top at his time in Miami. So one down season shouldn't completely make you jump ship off of a wide receiver who has put up elite numbers for so many years. He played in 17 games last year. Tua only played in 11 of those games. He had 122 targets, 81 receptions, 959 receiving yards. He was 16th in targets, 17th receptions, 27th in receiving yards, and he only scored 6 total touchdowns, 30th at the wide receiver position. When you compare that to 2023, where he scored 13, more than double the amount of total touchdowns as in 2024, to me, it feels like something is going to change. And again, maybe you don't believe me. Maybe you think that, oh, Tyreek Hill just wasn't getting open. He's just a complete and utter fucking bum. He's another year older. It's over. Finito. He's finished. He was 13th in route win rate and 14th in unrealized air yards. If you look at this graph that I made, left is going to be the stats with Tua, right are going to be the stats without Tua. Now, I understand that wide receiver 19 with Tua is far from what we saw in the previous seasons with Tua Tagovailoa, but Tyreek Hill was also playing hurt last season with the wrist injury that he got surgery on in the offseason and is going to be good to go for this season. He was the wide receiver 61 in points per game without Tua Tagovailoa, so I believe it is very clearly going to be a bounce back season out of Tyreek Hill and out of this Dolphins offense as a whole. In 2023, the Dolphins looked like they had one of the best, if not the best offenses in the National Football League, and Mike McDaniel, who is, his back is up against the ropes, right? If the Dolphins have another shitty season, his ass is grass. He's going to be gone, so he is going to be coaching for his life, and I believe that Tyreek Hill is a huge part of that. If you just look at his stats as a Dolphin since 2022, from 2022 to 2024, he has been the wide receiver 4 in terms of finish. So I have 100% confidence that Tyreek Hill is going to get back to his former glory. And if Tua does get hurt, sure, I do think that's definitely going to be a dagger into the back of Tyreek Hill, but I do think that the backup quarterback play out of either the MILF Hunter, Zach Wilson, or Quinn Ewers will be much better than the shit-tier backup quarterback play that we saw last season in Miami. Again, I get that people want to be as safe as possible in their fantasy football drafts, but as you get deeper and deeper into the draft, you need to take risks. And inside of the 3rd round, if I believe I could potentially get the wide receiver number 1 1 in fantasy football, I am going to take advantage of that, and I am going to draft him, and that is why I love Tyreek Hill this season, because I genuinely believe his upside is the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football, and the reason why you win your league. At number 3, we got George Kittle, tight end of the San Francisco 49ers, current consensus ADP, tight end number 3 at pick 37. Now, I love George Kittle for multiple reasons. For one, you don't actually have to pay the second round draft capital for George Kittle like you would when you draft a guy like either Brock Bowers or, in a lot of scenarios, potentially Trey McBride as well. There's a nice buffer between the two, and the reason why I like that nice buffer is because I still get my first and second round pick on that elite running back, that elite wide receiver, maybe 2 elite running backs, 2 elite wide receivers, and I can follow that up in the 3rd round and sometimes even in the 4th round on a guy like George Kittle, who I think has the upside to be the number 1 tight end in fantasy football. Last year, it was the tight end 3 in PPR and the tight end 1 in terms of PPR points per game. He has been a top 6 finisher in points per game every single one of his last 7 seasons, and he has been a top 3 tight end in points per game in 5 out of the last 7 seasons. Now, he did end up missing 2 games last season, playing in 15 games. He missed 1 game with a hamstring strain earlier on in the season, and then missed another game with a different hamstring strain. He had 94 targets, 7th at tight end, 78 receptions, 5th at tight end, 1,106 receiving yards, 3rd at tight end, and 8 total touchdowns, number 2 at the tight end position. He was a big benefactor last season of the fact that the 49ers offense was dropping like flies. There was injuries all over the offense. Christian McCaffrey misses time. They don't really have a true wide receiver 1 at that point. And George Kittle is going absolutely beast mode, vintage Marshawn Lynch on the defenses. But people will say, Nick, that's going to change. Well, if you look at the team right now, we have Jawan Jennings, who I think is the wide receiver 1 on the team, but he's having these contract discussions. Who knows really how good Jawan Jennings is, because one great year doesn't necessarily make me want to crown you. They have Ricky Pearsall, who I like. They have Brandon Ayuk, who will probably miss the first 4, 5, 6 potential games of the season. And Christian McCaffrey coming back is just going to open up more opportunities for the team to be able to push the ball into the red zone, and a more healthy version of the offensive line should prove to be better for Brock Purdy. They have one of the best schedules in the National Football League, in my opinion, and George Kittle is one of the most efficient tight ends in the National Football League. He was 1st in fantasy points per route run last season, 2nd in fantasy points per target, 2nd in quarterback rating per target, 1st in dominator rating, 1st in yards per target, 1st in yards per reception, and 1st in yards per team pass attempt. Say what you want about Brock Purdy, but he just got paid. They just backed up the Brinks truck, and they clearly want George Kittle to be a mainstay inside of this offense. And I do believe that George Kittle has the upside to score 10+ touchdowns. He's had back-to-back seasons with over 1,000 receiving yards, and he just feels like a super safe bet at the tight end position year in and year out. And again, you are getting that solid discount from a guy comparing to Brock Bowers as well as Trey McBride. And the best thing about George Kittle is, after Kittle, it seems like in a lot of drafts, Sam Laporta is kind of sniffing up the ass of George Kittle, metaphorically, right? Where he's getting picked around the range of George Kittle. Same thing goes with TJ Hawkinson, and I feel 9,000 more times more comfortable with George Kittle compared to one of those guys. So I'm a big fan of George Kittle this season again, because I feel as though where he is going in the draft is the sweet spot to jump on him, because you're able to get that elite running back, that elite wide receiver, or maybe 2 elite running backs, 2 elite wide receivers right before him, and he potentially may fall your way inside of the 4th round. And if you just want more reason to like George Kittle, I got another graphic for you from Ian Hardis on Twitter. Just George Kittle putting up similar per route efficiency numbers as the league's best wide receivers, wide receiver and tight end yards and targets per route run in 2024. And George Kittle is in a similar range as a guy like Justin Jefferson, you ever heard of him, or Jamar Chase and Lad McConkey. This is also a Josh Downs push, because if you look at see how good Josh Downs is, that is not included in today's video, but I love Josh Downs a ton. So George Kittle, Again, getting that tight end positional advantage could prove to be the reason why you win your league, and George Kittle is really one of the best, if not the best tight ends in the National Football League. Next up, we move to Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints. Consensus ADP running back 15 at pick 39. But before we talk about Alvin Kamara and the rest of the players in today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using the link in the video description or using promo code Notorious, you'll get your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash, as well as getting my fantasy football draft rankings for 2025 sent to the email that you use when you sign up. The reason why I love Underdog is because I love doing best ball drafts. The best part about best ball is it's the draft and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup at the end of every single week. Their biggest tournament, Best Ball Mania, $15 million in total prizes, $2 million in first place, $25 to enter. If you want to enter into smaller entry fee contests, they also have those on there as well. So make sure you guys do check out Underdog, get that free pick, get that deposit bonus, and also get my draft guide for free. So back on into things here with Alvin Kamara, consensus ADP running back 15 at pick 39. Every single year, without fail, people have been sleeping on Alvin Kamara. Now, I get a couple years ago, he's like this unanimous top 12 pick, but recently people have started to fall out of favor with Alvin Kamara, despite the fact that the motherfucker has 7 of 8 seasons in the NFL. He has finished as a top 8 points per game finisher. He was inside the top 5 in points per game as the running back 5 last season, running back 9 in PPR. 14 games played last season, 3 games missed with a groin. He also played through a broken hand for a decent time throughout the season. Now, the reason why you draft Alvin Kamara is not because he is this elite runner in between the tackles, right? He had 17th in terms of carries with 228, 950 rushing yards, 19th, right? That is great. That is fine. That is dandy. But the reason why you like Alvin Kamara so much is because of the immense amount of receiving upside he possesses inside of this offense. 89 targets, 6.4 targets per game. Some of your favorite wide receivers don't even get 6.4 targets per game. Number 1 at running back. 68 receptions, one short of being very nice, I like, with 69, 4.9 per game, number 2 at running back. 543 receiving yards, 38.8 per game, number 2, and 8 total touchdowns, 18th. While he is an unk, while he's getting up there in age, and while the Saints are an absolute dumpster fire, while you can smell the stench of the Saints through the television, while they don't have the most concrete quarterback room, Alvin Kamara is the offense. The offense runs. America runs on Duncan. The New Orleans Saints run through Alvin Kamara. 12th in dominator rating, 8th in explosive rating, and 1st in target share last season. And while they've changed the head coach, I don't think anything, and the starting quarterback, instead of being Derek Carr to start off the season, because his ass is in Margaritaville retired, they have probably Tyler Shuck. It don't matter. It really does not matter. We saw Alvin Kamara put up big games with Spencer Rattler under center, so I feel very confident that despite the quarterback play, despite the offense as a whole, Alvin Kamara just sees so many dump-offs. He gets so much usage at the inside of this offense that I am loving getting him as the running back number 15 because I think he could easily finish inside of the top 5 at the running back position. I get, is he the same Kamara from his early on career where this guy was as fast as it gets? No, he's not. He's lost a little bit of it, but he was still 8th in explosive rating last year. He is still very fast. And if the Saints offense just gets a little bit better, I could see Alvin Kamara really being the reason why you win your league in 2025 again, despite the fact that no one wants to draft the old head. Speaking of old heads, we've got Stefon Diggs at number 5, wide receiver of the New England Patriots, consensus ADP wide receiver 41 at pick number 91. Now, the report from July 22nd is that Stefon Diggs' knee was cleared to fully participate in Patriots training camp. The team will closely monitor Diggs' camp reps, according to Athletics' Deanna Rossini. About 9 months after he tore his ACL, it would appear that Diggs will be ready to go to start off the season, bearing any setbacks in the next coming weeks. So, while during the more off-season process, people were a little bit worried, hey, how will Diggs fit into this offense instantly? Will it take him some time to be ramped up? will he potentially miss the first couple of games of the season? Well, now it seems like unless something bad happens to him, he is going to be GTG, good to go for week number 1. Which makes me feel as though right now you are getting him at an incredibly cheaper price than you're going to have to pay in late August or early September, which is just another reason to get onto Underdog, because you can draft your teams right now. Your home league probably ain't drafted until late August, early September, where Diggs' value is going to keep on increasing, whereas on Underdog, you can get him right now, and that is what I have been doing. I have been smash drafting Stefon Diggs. Last season in Houston, I was really not onto the Stefon Diggs bandwagon. I thought, hey, why would I draft Diggs when I'm all over Nico Collins? Metaphorically, of course. I'm just going to stay away from Diggs. I'm not sure how he's going to transition from one team to the other, from Buffalo to Houston. He's a little bit older. Well, guess what? When he did play, sure, I was technically right because he did end up getting hurt. He only played 8 games, so I looked like a genius for fading him. But during the actual season when he was playing, it was starting to look like I made a grave mistake fading him. 4 of 8 games, he had over 18 points per game. Week 1 up against the Colts, 21.9 points as the wide receiver 9. Week 3 up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings, 19.9 fantasy points, wide receiver 15. Wide receiver 15 again up against the Jaguars the following week, 18.5 fantasy points. At week 6 up against Christian Gonzalez and the Patriots, his now new team, 19.7 points as the wide receiver number 13. So while there were some worries for me last year entering into Houston, because I really like Nico Collins, I really like Tank Dell, he is now in a scenario where he is the clear head honcho, the clear alpha wide receiver in this wide receiver core. Sure, they draft Kyle Williams, they've got DeMario Douglas, they've got Kayshon Boutte, they've got Kendrick Bourne, they have these other pieces. Stefon Diggs is clearly the best wide receiver in this room. He has scored 15 plus PPR points per game in 5 straight seasons now, and I really do believe that he is going to rip off yet another very safe, very reliable season. And the fact that you're drafting him not even as a top 32 wide receiver, as a top 36 wide receiver, he's not even going as in a 12-team league, he's not even a wide receiver 3. He's coming off the board as a wide receiver 4. If Stefon Diggs is your flex, you are going to be laughing straight to the bank, especially based upon how much Vegas lines are just sucking the metaphorical wang of the Patriots. They love the Patriots to have a big season this year, and I'm a big fan of Drake May, and I think that is entirely possible. He was averaging 8 targets per game last year, 5.9 receptions, 62 receiving yards, and in 8 games, he scored 4 total touchdowns. I think the upside is still there, even with Stefon Diggs being another year older. In terms of efficiency, he was still 8th in route win rate, 18th in true catch rate, and 26th in target separation. So as the clear alpha play in New England, I think his ADP is going to keep on moving up, so I am excited. Even when his ADP moves up past this, I'm still going to be all over him because I have him ranked much higher than the wide receiver 41. Next up, we move to a rookie. We went from 2 old heads to a youngin. We got Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Consensus ADP, wide receiver 52 at pick 128, the 19th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. He played all 4 years in college at Ohio State, along with guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, just to name a few. Full 4 years in college, like I said, last season in 2024 as a 22-year-old, 16 games played with 109 targets for 81 receptions and 1,011 receiving yards, 12.5 yards per reception for 10 receiving touchdowns. He had 2 separate 1,000-plus receiving yard seasons in college, and in both of those seasons, he scored 10 receiving touchdowns. Now, the reason why I like Egbuka, despite the fact that the guy does look incredible on tape, and despite the fact that he has the draft capital, that first-round draft capital, to instantly jolt him to be a piece of this offense, it really is just the praise of quarterback Baker Mayfield that is really pushing me more and more towards loving Egbuka this season. Baker Mayfield continues to rave about Emeka Egbuka. This is a quote from a podcast with the Kelsey brothers. Emeka Egbuka is an absolute stud. This is what Baker said. He's the real deal. We can plug and play him at any of the 3 wide receiver spots right now. It's pretty exciting, meaning he is not just locked and loaded to play one of those spots. He can move all around the formation. Baker, unprompted on first round wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. He's an absolute stud. He's the real deal, like we already said. But here's some more context. You know how you can't just teach guys leaving the ground to catch the ball. He's always grounded when he catches it. He keeps moving. There's yak potential out the wazoo there, but he's just so damn smart and he's willing to block. And that's important because if you're out there able to block, that means they're going to trust you to be on the field more, willing to do everything. That was just some added context for me. Willing to do everything we ask him to do, but then we can plug and play him at any of the 3 wide receiver spots right now. It's pretty exciting. Tone of voice was half impressed and half letting you in on a secret, which I agree. While that's a tweet from Pat Thorman, I also watched the clip as well just to figure out, hey, am I reading some fugaz? Does this guy not understand how to, read the situation, read the room? I think that was a perfect breakdown of the conversation between Jason Kelce, Travis Kelce, and Mr. Baker Mayfield. So you add in all of that hype, right? All of that hype that Baker's getting. And sure, you might say, Nick, just because the quarterback is loving on his new wide receiver piece doesn't mean that's going to actually work. And yeah, I get that, right? We've heard fluff pieces before where you get all excited off some fucking training camp video from July, some one piece of blurb that you read, and you just get ecstatic to draft the guy, and you draft him, and the guy sucks ass. Happened before, but Chris Godwin also won't be participating in team-related activities to begin training camp with the ankle, and ESPN's Jenna Lane reports Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin underwent a second ankle procedure in the spring. A second ankle surgery has hit Chris Godwin, Mr. President. Godwin dislocated his ankle in week 7 last season and has not been participating in team activities this offseason, starting camp on the PUP. Now we have a potential reason as to why the journey back has been so slow because of the minor procedure. Now, if he's still on the PUP list by later on, then he'll miss the first 4 games of the season. That's not a guarantee, but when you're 29, you're Chris Godwin who has been banged up in the past. And when you're Egbuka in a scenario where Mike Evans also hasn't been the healthiest flower out there, Chris Godwin coming off injury, I think even with Godwin and Mike Evans healthy, with a team that runs so many 3 wide receiver sets, I could very easily see Egbuka dominating this season, even with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin healthy. And if one of them gets banged up, or if one of them is still banged up, we could be talking about a great steal where he's coming off the board right now. And just to further put a bow on what I'm saying about Egbuka, Matt Harmon of Perception, his profile is available. 68.1% success rate versus man, 83.6% success rate versus zone, 82nd percentile, 81.3% success rate versus press, very limited reps. Strong set of hands. My appreciation for Egbuka grew the more games I added to the charting sample. And if you look at the charts, they look very, very nice. So Emeka Egbuka as a rookie, it may be a bit of a slow roll. It might take some time for him to get truly jolted in there. Or if Godwin's missing time to start off the season, he might instantly be carving up defenses like a Thanksgiving turkey. So I am ecstatic to get this rookie where he's coming off the board right now as the wide receiver number 52. And final guy to discuss is another rookie, Colston Loveland, tight end of the Chicago Bears. Consensus ADP, tight end 11 at pick 109. Now, earlier on in the offseason, there were kind of some worries with Loveland because he did come off that AC joint injury. He had the shoulder injury, so there's worries about, hey, how much is he going to be involved in the offseason process? How healthy is he going to be, even to start off the season? Now, Bears GM Ryan Pace said tight end Colston Loveland shoulder will be ready to go. Ditto LT left tackle Braxton Jones. Pace then said there will likely be a ramp-up period, so they're good to be ready to slowly, ramp him up, but there aren't any long-term concerns about Loveland's shoulder, which is music to my ears. This guy was a first-round draft pick. He was a top 10, the 10th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. 2024 Michigan as a 20-year-old, 10 games played with 56 receptions on 86 targets for 582 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. Now, when it comes to drafting Loveland as the tight end number 11, I don't necessarily know if I have the cojones, if I have the massive set downstairs, if I have the Stan Marsh balls where he's jumping on him, right? I don't know if I have the cojones to go with Colston Loveland and be like, he's my locked and loaded starter for week number 1. I think the smart plan would be to take 2 tight ends if you draft Colston Loveland. And hey, maybe see how things ramp up, how the offense looks early on, how Loveland's involvement looks early on, before you really throw him out to the dogs and start him in week number 1. I think that's just the safe approach. Could you start him? Of course, because I do still believe the upside is there week 1 with the Ben Johnson offense. So we're talking about a Ben Johnson offense that had Sam Laporta dominating in his rookie season. And I think Loveland has the ability to finish top 5 as a rookie. And with Luther Burden having practiced since May 20th with the hamstring injury, missing most of OTAs, now missing the start of camp, that ain't good. We were very hopeful. Ben Johnson says that he'd be ready to go day 1. Bears coach Ben Johnson said Thursday, but the soft tissue that he's been dealing with in the springtime lingered a little bit longer than we'd want. It's day to day with him. That doesn't sound great. I know they have Cole Kmet, they have Wiki DJ Moore, they have Roma Dunze, but we saw how good Sam Laporta was in his rookie year. I believe that if you just watch the tape of Loveland, you're not just seeing a tight end, right? To me, you watch him play and you see this huge receiver. So I love Colston Loveland this year. And especially, again, if you can, package him with a second tight end, because if you have to really roll the dice week 1 to make it a little bit risky, I was all over Sam Laporta before his rookie year. So hopefully I'm right on Mr. Colston Loveland. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you didn't enjoy, make sure you guys uppercut that subscribe button. I didn't even do an uppercut. Hit that subscribe button with a hook. Like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It'd help me out a ton. Check out Underdog to get your free pick plus a first deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Plus, my draft guide for free. Check out one of the videos if you haven't seen them already. I love you long time. I hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.